Hi everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Meg, the holistic fitness coach, and I help women reach their dream body goals without restriction by training smarter and not harder, and by eating more. I also educate women on muscle building, on nutrition, and all things related to fitness. And today's video is about the relationship between carbs, insulin, and muscle. My hope with this video is that you understand what carbs exactly are, what they do in your body, and why you need them to build muscle, and also why you should build muscle and where insulin comes in. So this video is about how to get leaner, stronger, and more insulin sensitive without cutting out carbs. There's a real carb fear out there, especially amongst women. Myself included, I used to be scared of carbs and I used to eat low carb, thinking that I would just gain fat if I ate more carbs. But it turns out there's so much more to carbs, and carbs have a key role in your body when you want to build muscle, and muscle can protect you from developing insulin resistance and other metabolic health issues. So there's a lot more to know about carbs and the hormones involved in carb metabolism, and I really want you to understand how this all works together, why we need carbs, why we need insulin, and why we need muscle. So let's get started with this video. Just a little disclaimer, the information shared in this video is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to be medical advice and should not be relied upon as such. There's no guarantee made from my side regarding the outcomes of the methods or strategies discussed in this video, and always consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, or lifestyle. To begin with, I want you to understand that carbs do not make you fat. This is, I think, one of the biggest fears that women have, especially when it comes to starting in a gym, wanting to build muscle, or perhaps you have already been to the gym for some years, but you're not really seeing any further progress. And there is a time when you probably came across this information that you need to be eating more carbs. And if you look at what most fitness people eat, you will see that they usually eat quite a lot of carbs. They eat a carb-rich diet. So why is that? And why do carbs not make you fat, as we've been told, right? To understand carbs, you need to understand that carbs are energy. They are like the fuel for your body. And they give you the energy to train, to build muscle. And you need to have good amounts of energy to build muscle, because muscle only builds when you're really giving your everything to an exercise or to your training. And you cannot give your everything if you don't have the energy for it. Even if you're thinking that you're giving your everything, and you're maybe even feeling exhausted after training, if you start eating more carbs, you will start to notice what it means to actually have more energy and give that energy to an exercise. Believe me, I used to think I can go without carbs. This doesn't count for my body. My body doesn't need carbs. I was eating very low carbs, just some fruit mostly, to get my vitamins in, but I didn't see carbs as a healthy nutrient as such. And I was training hard to failure, which is really important, training to failure. That is what creates muscle. But the problem is, if your failure is not real failure because you don't have the actual energy available that it takes to go to actual real failure, you won't be able to give the right stimulus to your muscle, because muscles, they only grow if they get repetitive stimulus to grow. Otherwise, there's no need for the body to adapt. right? Muscle building is basically an adaptation to new stimulus. And if there's not enough stimulus, there is no muscle building. So that's why carbs are essential to build muscle in the first place, because they provide you with the energy that it takes to train in a certain way that allows you to build muscle. And not just that, but muscle also burns a lot of energy, meaning once you have built muscle, you also burn more. That means that indirectly, you eating carbs leads to you building muscle, provided that you train the right way. And that leads to you burning more calories 24/7. The amazing thing about muscle is also that muscle is like a glucose sponge or a sink. And it helps to prevent blood sugar issues. So the more muscle you have, the better your blood sugar balance. They soak up the glucose, the sugar, in your blood before it goes elsewhere, such as in the fat cells, or even stay in the blood for too long and cause health issues. So without muscle, carbs are more likely to cause blood sugar spikes and fat gain. Muscle is that extra sponge that you have that will soak up excess sugar in the blood. So carbs are not the problem. The problem is a combination of overeating calories for a longer period of time, poor insulin sensitivity, and low amount of muscle mass. So why does your body love carbs so much? As I already mentioned, carbs provide easy, accessible energy. Carbs are the preferred source of energy of your cells. You can also get energy from fat and even from protein, but it is not the preferred energy source of your body. Meaning that if your body doesn't have enough carbs available, it has to go through another pathway to get its energy demands met, which is more exhausting and more demanding and puts more stress on the body. Carbs also help regulate blood sugar, meaning fewer crashes and cravings. Carbs lower stress hormones such as cortisol and support thyroid function. They also improve sleep quality by helping the serotonin and melatonin production, and the glycogen in the muscle is essential for hard workouts and recovery. So some of the carbs that you eat can get stored in your muscle cells as glycogen to provide you with energy for training and recovery. So how does insulin come in? Insulin is a hormone that reduces muscle breakdown after training. And insulin release is triggered by carb consumption. Whenever you eat carbs, there is insulin being released by your pancreas. And this helps shuttle amino acids into your muscles, meaning eating some carb with your protein will help the protein, the amino acids, get into your muscles, helping with muscle growth. So insulin doesn't build muscle, but it makes the process smoother and much more efficient. Many people talk about insulin, but are often unaware of what insulin actually does. So insulin opens the doors of your cells so that glucose can get inside. It also moves glucose into cells when there is an extra amount available and it needs to be stored somewhere. And the three areas where the body can store glucose is in the muscle or the liver as glycogen, or in the fat cells as fat. Insulin also keeps your blood sugar stable and prevents damage from high glucose. If the glucose in your blood is basically left there as excess energy and cannot go anywhere, then the glucose can damage your body. So insulin keeps your blood sugar stable and prevents damage that comes from high glucose. So if insulin wasn't there to move glucose into cells, then there would be very large amounts of glucose in the blood left, which is very dangerous and harmful to the body. If glucose is just floating around in your blood, it's basically having excess energy in your blood that isn't going anywhere, that's not needed for anything. So insulin has a key role in taking care of energy that your body doesn't need, to put it in a storage where you can access it later. It helps shuttle amino acids into muscles. Insulin also signals to the brain that energy is available, lowering stress hormones like cortisol. It also regulates fat storage depending on how well your body responds to it. Meaning, if you are insulin sensitive, your body can easily access the fat that was put in the storage in the fat cells and make use of it with the help of insulin. And now we'll come to insulin resistance. This is a very common health issue these days, and many people believe that it is because of a high carb consumption. That's why I also want to talk about it in this video. So insulin resistance is basically when your cells don't respond properly to insulin anymore. And your pancreas compensates by making even more insulin. The pancreas normally sends out a certain amount of insulin. If your body doesn't respond to that insulin, the pancreas starts to produce more because it understands that what I already sent wasn't enough. We need to make more. This leads to elevated insulin levels because the pancreas keeps producing, but the body is still not responding. Blood sugar may still look normal on a test, but insulin is already elevated. That is insulin resistance. If this continues for a very long time, there will be blood sugar issues at some point, because if the body doesn't respond to insulin, the glucose cannot be moved through the body as needed and as necessary. So more and more glucose will be left in the blood, cannot come out of the fat cells, and it just slowly creates a metabolic problem for the body. The result of insulin resistance is fatigue, cravings, belly fat, difficulty losing weight, and the long-term risks are diabetes, heart disease, PCOS, infertility, and much more, because more and more glucose is being left in the blood, causing harm to your body. As I mentioned before, glucose that's just swimming around in the blood and isn't being used for anything, but also not stored, starts to create damage. This is really the start of a metabolic crisis. Though people are often unaware that there are a lot of things that can be done to prevent insulin resistance and also to reverse it. Insulin resistance happens when your body cells stop responding properly to insulin. Whenever that happens, this is called insulin resistance. Your body cells are resistant to insulin. And possible causes for why this happens can be a chronic calorie surplus, meaning eating more energy than your body can handle for a very long time. And a lot of energy is being stored in the fat, and there's a lot of fat gain over a short period of time. Then your fat cells will also stop responding well to insulin and won't store the fat. And while you might be thinking, well, that sounds great, my fat cells don't take the fat, but it's actually not good at all, because your fat cells are actually a protection. They protect your blood sugar levels by storing some of that extra glucose that you have. If that energy is not being put in your fat cells, the energy will be freely roaming around and causing damage. That's why fat is really a protective tissue. Not just on the outside, it doesn't just protect us from the cold, it also protects us from the inside, from chronically elevated blood sugar levels. At some point, if there has been a lot of weight gain, a lot of fat gain in a very short time, the fat cells will also start becoming insulin resistant. Low muscle mass and inactivity can also further contribute to insulin resistance, because muscle is obviously the place where glucose is stored as glycogen. And if you don't have a lot of muscle mass, you have less glycogen storage available, meaning less space for your body to store excess energy. When you have a lot of muscle mass, you have muscle and you have fat, which just gives you so much more storage opportunity, so it doesn't have to stay in the blood and cause health issues there. Other factors that can cause or contribute to insulin resistance are chronic inflammation, belly fat, especially the belly fat that is inside, meaning around the organs, because it releases inflammatory molecules which can interfere with insulin signaling. Poor sleep and high stress are also risk factors, because stress releases hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And those hormones, they make the liver release more glucose. So as I explained in the beginning, the liver is also somewhere where the body can store glucose. It is also stored as glycogen. When you're stressed, the liver releases the stored glycogen into the blood. And the reason for this is that when we humans, we're still living in nature, most things that potentially caused us stress were things that demanded a lot of immediate energy availability, such as a tiger popping up behind the bush, or another crazy human wanting to hunt us. We didn't really have work stress. We didn't really have stress coming from our phone screens. Most stress demanded energy to be dealt with. And so the liver still operates like that. The body actually still operates like that. And that is why when we have stress, when there's a release in stress hormones, the liver pumps out glucose. Because obviously, if we wanted to run away from the tiger or wanted to run away from the crazy person that was hunting us, we needed immediate energy, immediate glucose to help us run as fast as possible. Or to fight with as much power as possible. That still happens today, even though you're not really running off the stress anymore. So what happens very often is that these days we have stress, and there's a release in glucose into the blood, but we're not using that glucose to run or fight. Oftentimes when you feel stressed, you're just sitting at work or in front of your laptop, and there's just all this stress and then all that blood sugar, but you're not using it. If you're using blood sugar by exercising, by running, or by moving in general, you're using that energy. But if you're not using that energy, that is when the problem arises. That is when first a lot of insulin will be pumped out to like move that glucose somewhere. But at some point, if you're chronically stressed and you chronically have high glucose, your body will have released so much insulin that it can cause insulin resistance. And that's why chronically high cortisol reduces insulin sensitivity. Other factors can be genetics and hormones. Aging, of course, because there is a natural loss of muscle mass, and hormonal changes happening as we age. And the same also goes for pregnancy. So how does muscle prevent insulin resistance? Muscle is, and I love saying this, and I love explaining women how healing muscle is. I will repeat it over and over. I'm not getting tired of this because muscle is truly amazing. Muscle is the cure most women overlook. First of all, trained muscle has more GLUT4 transporters, which are basically hormones that take up glucose. And so glucose can enter the cells faster. Contractions themselves, so muscle contractions, so whenever you move a muscle, there's a contraction during lifting weights or walking, pull glucose in even without insulin. So muscle can use glucose without needing insulin. That's amazing. Muscle can literally leave insulin alone, can let insulin rest and just take the energy that it needs. And so giving a break to the pancreas and to insulin. And having more muscle mass means having a bigger glycogen tank, and so there's a lot less overflow into fat storage, which can then lead to insulin resistance. And more muscle also means that you have better blood sugar regulation 24/7, not just during workouts. So muscle is really like a metabolic protector. More lean mass, and lean mass means muscle mass, means easier weight management, because every kilo of muscle burns up to 3 times more calorie at rest than fat. More muscle keeps blood sugar stable, reduces cravings, insulin sensitivity stays higher even when calories are higher, because muscle will store some of that glycogen and protect insulin. You can probably see now that carbs are very important to build muscle and how amazing muscles are. It's important to understand that carbs should be paired with muscle use, because without the muscle, you can probably not tolerate that many carbs. So it's really key to use the carbs for muscle growth. To make sure you eat some carbs before you train, after you train, and for other meals, focus on fiber-rich carbs such as beans, lentils, vegetables like potatoes, and keep blood sugar stable. And it's also really important to combine carbs with protein and some fat, because this further helps with balancing blood sugar levels. And of course, we also need to train in a way that improves insulin sensitivity. So it's important to do resistance training, because that's what builds muscle at least 2 to 5 times per week. And to include compound moves such as squats, deadlifts, presses, pulls, to do at least 7 to 10K steps a day. To do cardio, because cardio takes up a lot of energy, and to also include some yoga or other stress management techniques, because obviously stress management is important to get that chronic stress under control, which will help lower cortisol levels. And the common mistakes I see women make, and I do understand it because I used to be the same. We women often think about eating clean, but we're scared of carbs, and so we're eating very healthy, but still we're feeling tired, we have low energy, and we don't have muscle mass, because if you don't eat carbs, and if you just eat salad 3 times a day, you cannot grow muscle. Also, eating low calorie and skipping meals, but instead maybe eating healthy fats, and quite a lot of them, which easily puts you in a calorie surplus, but it doesn't give you the right energy that you need to build muscle, whereas carbs do that. If you eat enough carbs, you can build muscle. You can train in a way that builds muscle. If you get all your energy from fat, you cannot do that. And of course, a big one is also under eating protein. Without protein, you simply cannot build muscle. There is no building block for that. And also tracking calories, but ignoring macros. Setting the goal at like 1400 or 1600 and just look at calories, but not looking at how much protein am I eating, how many carbs am I eating, and how much fat am I eating. And if you don't know about macros, you might be getting all your calories from fat. It might not make you sick right away, but you cannot build muscle like that. And so it's important to eat in a certain way that allows you to build muscle, because muscle is, again, it's like your metabolic protector. And it looks great. Muscle gives you the shape, and it makes your skin more tight looking. So yeah, there are a lot of mistakes women make often because they have been told to fear carbs, to fear calories, to fear muscles. It's a very common mistake that is oftentimes costing us our health. And to start avoiding these mistakes, I created a simple framework that you can easily remember. So, first, make sure that you build muscle with progressive overload, eating enough protein, recovering well, following a proper training plan, and then using carbs to fuel your training. Before training, after training, and then depending on your goals, on other meals in the day. And third, refill glycogen after to recover and adapt. So meaning, depending on your current goal, you refill with as many carbs as possible to recover properly and adapt to the new training stimulus. Repeat this with consistency to feel the positive impact that muscle can have on your hormones and your metabolism. And some success markers that you will notice when you do everything right is that your lifts go up, meaning you do more reps, you can lift more weight, you feel fitter and stronger, you have fewer cravings and steady energy throughout the day, your body composition shifts to a leaner, more toned look, and of course long-term health markers such as lower risk of diabetes, PCOS symptoms, better hormonal balance, and so on. Before we come to an end with this video, I want you to remember 3 things. So, first of all, carbs are not the problem. Undertrained and under-muscled bodies are, and overeating processed calories. Second, the more muscle you build, the better your body uses carbs as fuel instead of storing them as fat. And third, the goal is to be able to eat as many carbs and as many calories as possible without gaining excess body fat and or other health problems. So the goal is not to eat as little as possible. The goal is always to be able to eat as much as possible without gaining excess body fat or getting health problems from it. Because the more you can eat without getting fat and without getting sick, the better. The more easy it is, the more muscle you can build, the more energy your body can literally utilize. I want you to really remind yourself of these 3 things next time when you feel scared of carbs, when you feel confused because of social media, because of people making you scared of carbs. Remember these 3 things. So I hope these reminders help you to navigate the calorie fear and carb fear a little better. What I talked about in this video is obviously just a foundation, and if you feel that you want and need more support, that you want exact macros, exact food swaps, you want personalized support and an expert training plan that is designed for you, that's what only my one-on-one coaching can really give you. The structure that you get through my coaching turns this healthy eating approach into actual results that you want to see and that you've been working so hard to see. I would love for you to follow me on Instagram and fill out my coaching form to inquire about coaching. All the links are linked below in the description box. If you like this video, then I'd be really happy if you give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more videos. And then I hope I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!